Host of the Space of the Nation podcast, and Steve Schmidt, co-founder of the Save America movement, a 50-state movement to defend democracy and defeat Trumpism. Schmidt's also the founder of the multimedia company, The Warning. Welcome to both of you. Hey, Steve, you never make me smile. That's just the nature of our business, I think. But you wrote something that really made me smile in response to all of the horribleness that we have all been witnessing for months, and really in the last month in particular. You said 4 words: defiance is the cure. And that made me smile, because you're right. And that's what we're seeing across America.
This must be defied. Franklin Roosevelt in 1936 said to the Democratic National Convention, he said, of some generations, much is given. Of others, much is expected. This generation has a rendezvous with destiny. We remember those people as the greatest generation. We grew up in an era where we thought we were in the generations that much had been given to, not the generations much had been expected of. But we have a rendezvous with destiny. This is the 250th anniversary of the independence of the United States. What we are witnessing in our country is an obscenity. It is a sin. It is an evil. It must be confronted. It will be defeated. Though it will get worse before it is defeated. And we have to reconcile that. There will be more people killed in Minnesota, and there will be more people killed in other states. But as has happened in our past, 250 years ago, when an American was gunned down, there were 10 more ready to take their place. Donald Trump and Homeland Security and ICE will not succeed in obliterating the First, the Second, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Eighth, the 10th, and the 14th Amendments to the Constitution. We have a right to speech. We have a right to pray as we choose. We have a right to assemble where we want. And these rights are not negotiable. They do not come at the whim of Kristi Noem or Stephen Miller. It's time for all of us to make an American stand.
Anna Maria, you rode along with one of these constitutional observer groups, and this concept of defiance, what we used to think of as resistance, this defiance takes on so many forms at the most basic level, at a community level, and at the national level, and in the courts. Tell me what you saw, though. It was important to you to see what these people are actually doing out there to protect their neighbors, which is the most basic level of care and protection of democracy.
I rode along for a whole day, and I actually didn't see a lot of physical interactions between ICE and the observers. And it was important to me to express a couple things. One is that is actually the norm. As heavily present as ICE is in Minneapolis, most of the time, the work of resistance is pretty boring. It is just driving around, it is calling in those plates, it is sometimes following those cars, and nothing happens. And that's the goal, right? Is that nothing will happen. And then there's another layer, which it's really hard to put across on television, which is the everyday stuff, right? The people who are baking hot dishes for their neighbors who are out on the streets. There's actually a fix-it team that goes out to help repair the doors that are bashed in. There are people that are, this is the part that's kind of top secret, right? There are people doing the day jobs of those people who are out on the streets. The people who have emails to answer and spreadsheets to do, but those who have small kids at home and don't want to risk too much by being out doing the patrols, right, and risk getting tear gas and not being able to go home to their kids, they're doing the stuff that is incredibly tedious. The people that are doing the dispatch, right, the people that are putting together these databases. I think that it's really important to note that this defiance that Steve is talking about doesn't always mean putting your body on the line in a really dramatic way. I also want to point out there are people who are doing the day-to-day work of just maybe doing an extra load of laundry for the people next door, right? Maybe having the kids come over from school so they have they have a safe place to stay. And I think some of those people need to be given credit for doing the long, slow work that maybe makes them available for the next round of this, right? Because it might go on for a long time. If I could quickly address Steve's point too, that there might be more deaths. I think one way to conceive of what's happening right now is that there's already been a lot of deaths. There's just been deaths that we haven't seen. There have been deaths in detention. There have been deaths that have happened in arrest from ICE. They're just deaths that aren't as present in our front pages. So maybe rather than thinking of it as there are going to be more people shot on the street by ICE, is that we've already had all of that happen. And we're actually at a stage where we can bring things to an end without a lot of more deaths. Now, I think people should be prepared for a longer haul, but I think the way that we prepare for that isn't necessarily preparing for deaths and arming ourselves, but perhaps doing that long, slow, tedious work that, let's give Minnesota credit, they're really good at.
No, they really are. They are good at it. I agree.
Unsexy people.
I've stopped telling people.
Homes, right?
I've stopped telling people, Steve, how they're braving the cold because they don't care. Like they're out there. They're doing the work. And when you look at every successful resistance movement in history, it's never been a flash in the pan. It's always been the stuff that Anna Marie is talking about. It's hard work. It's slow. Sometimes it's generational. But there might be some kid who's participating in a protest or whose parents are constitutional observers who is learning a lesson, and that kid is going to be a member of Congress or a judge or the president of the United States one day. I think that's the point you're both making, that this is not going to be over fast. Buckle up and do what it is you can do wherever you are.
Yeah, I'm just gonna respond to what Anna Marie said. Over the last, I don't know, since 2015, I don't think that there is anybody in America who has been more correct about what's coming next than I have. And here's the deal. During every interview I've ever been on, there's somebody there to say, no, it's about to be better. Joe Biden is the only person who can beat the Republican in the White House. And it has gotten worse. And the predictions I've made, there's been 57 people killed at least by ICE, and there will be more. This will get worse. And Donald Trump is committed to making it get worse. The Save America movement deployed Liberty vans at the very beginning of the ICE atrocities into Los Angeles, where we had cameramen. Our cameras have been filming ICE for the last months. We have 2,000 hours of footage. We have footage that has been used in federal court cases. And all of this footage will one day be used to prosecute these people. What I want to say is this, is that ICE and the battle in Minnesota is the Massachusetts of 250 years ago. But ICE isn't stopping in Minnesota. They're going to go to other states. These abuses will continue. We saw a woman yesterday have guns drawn on her on a rural town in Minnesota. The police chief intervened. We have a lawless, fascist administration that fetishizes violence. This will be overcome by the power of nonviolence. And the fact that you see Americans all across the country rising up together, these small acts, picking up a kid of an observer, baking brownies, bringing coffee, sending pizzas. You can send pizzas to the volunteers from California if you choose. And the point is this, everywhere across the country, Americans are called to stand up. It doesn't mean that you have to go and be filming ICE 5 feet away, but you must act. There is no neutral space left anymore in America. As Elie Wiesel said, neutrality never helps the victim, right, only the oppressor. And so in this moment, there's a time for choosing. And the choice is America or Trump. And the country, as we see responding by the polling, his numbers are collapsing. But that does not mean as he gets less popular, that he doesn't get more powerful.
Right.
And Donald
or more
Trump
dangerous as he gets cornered.
He is prepared to point weapons at the American people and to immunize the people who fire them into the backs of patriots who are on their knees.